This is my second upload for today, and this upload is just another bit of explanation surrounding the dynamics of this situation that's been caused in Tralee, County Kerry since I got married and since I gave birth in 2015. Um, basically, usually in normal circumstances, people get on and mind their own business. But there's been people from different businesses that have been causing a very tumultuous situation in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland for me and my family, or my family and I. And that's involved violations of all of the Human Rights Declaration. We're all entitled to a right to freedom. We're all entitled to our own right to choose. We're all entitled to our own right to free movement and travel as we choose. As I've said in my submission forms for the United Nations that have been notified about these human rights violations and children's rights violations that are occurring, I've experienced unlawful detainments that I had not ever experienced before, only since being married, and that's since 2015. Not with a mental health illness, not a patient of mental health services. So that as such is an arbitrary arrest, and that was intentionally perpetrated to facilitate the injustice and the discrimination and inequality that's being perpetrated in 2020 democracy Ireland. So basically, in such circumstances as these, when there's individuals threatening law-abiding citizens, peaceful citizens in society, when they're endangering vulnerable and innocent individuals in society, it kind of makes a person wonder what are authorities' role in such a situation, and what are politicians' role in such a situation, because we've all heard of how, you know, people just disappear, um, people on the missing list, people being taken away, people being displaced from their community, simply due to circumstances such as what I'm experiencing, and worst of all, against their choice and better judgment and their own decision making process. So it's hypothetically a situation of people that are abusing their positions, that are perpetrating offences against the constitutional rights of a citizen, and disposing of a problem that they've caused, basically. And that's what happens. As long as I'm living in this county, and that's been since birth, I have not ever witnessed or experienced the disgrace that's been caused in this hometown and county since these problems were caused, mainly, again, not just back in 2005. This is the second controversy now that people are responsible for, certain collective are responsible for. This second assault or vendetta has been a little bit more serious and has involved a lot more offences. And I'm very curious as to know why authorities have ignored the situation. But then that leads me on to the other issue of my marital rights and my property rights. This has involved harassment, and this has involved displacement and arbitrary arrest to facilitate the guilty culprits. So this is all very serious, and there are those that think this is entertaining and amusing and hilarious to see this kind of suffering being imposed on individuals that they think are just get rid or dispose of or insignificant after exploiting and damaging and stealing and trespassing. Um, so that's what this is about as well. this other aspect of a person's right to freedom, and people or individuals or guilty culprits, however they want to consider themselves, avengers, whatever, just deciding to violate a person's right to freedom based on nonsense, based on intrusive and defamatory comments and claims. The unusual part about it is that those that might need mental health assistance aren't actually receiving that service, and therefore there is an abuse of their position in mental health services, facilitating human rights violations in Ireland. So that's one aspect of this. The other aspect is the role of the authorities in this situation, that still haven't acknowledged my victim impact statement, as I've mentioned, and that are fully aware of the offences that have been perpetrated, and that might be unwittingly or consciously facilitating further offences without protecting the constitutional rights of victims and survivors, and victims and survivors of these culprits. So the right to freedom um, is the topic of this upload, and basically how this situation has been orchestrated and has been causing um, displacement of me, Emer Griffin McElligott, in Tralee County, Kerry, Ireland, from my marital home, from my family home. I'm currently in HAPS accommodation, as I've mentioned, and you know, there are individuals that are uncomfortable with the reality of the situation. They don't feel comfortable tolerating the truth being shared about an horrendous, shameful occurrence in Tralee County, Kerry, Ireland, that has not ever occurred in this community ever before. But the more uncomfortable part of all of this for such individuals that would ever dare to threaten my right to freedom or my right to habitat in my dwellings, current dwellings, and potential future dwellings, is, another aspect to all of this, that basically threatening or endangering my current habitat would be due simply to their discomfort at not wanting to confront the problems that have been caused. The cost of my health, the cost of anyone's health, um, inestimable. People are very uncomfortable about confronting what they have done wrong. People are very uncomfortable about confronting what they owe, and they are very uncomfortable with confronting the damage that they've done. And therefore, these uploads are not to everyone's liking. But the issues are that there are people new to this situation that don't understand the situation properly, that have caused a very dangerous situation, and that have caused a very embarrassing situation that has not ever happened in this county ever before. And that's not good. That's not good for anyone. So basically, the offences have been pretty horrendous, and people that have imposed in my private life, my married life, my family life, my professional life, my spiritual purpose, etc., etc., and that have violated spiritually also, have not been comfortable about these matters being discussed, and they seem to think that just because they're not prepared to tolerate the reality of the problems that they've caused, that they're going to dictate how the future outcomes will be. The intrusion of individuals since I became a married woman in 2015 have been absolutely disgraceful, and the culprits have no shame, and they have no regard, and they have no respect for what they've imposed upon or for what they've destroyed. They don't even have an awareness of what they've damaged. And a spiritual purpose is pretty serious to be messing around with, and anybody's faith or personal spiritual life is pretty serious to be messing around with and exploiting as well. So that's what has happened also. Um, so these people that have not consulted me, that have obstructed justice, that have perpetrated legal violations, that have been hypocritical and delusional about their own misbehaviour, misconduct, and damage that they've done, um, obviously are failing already so far, for all of the offences that I've expressed and explained and clarified in my victim impact statement. The authorities still have not acknowledged or rectified the necessary protection that I require for. So, as a person that has been living in this community all my life, that has been contributing positively to the community as well, I might add, that has worked in a voluntary capacity, that has worked as a professional educator, and that has not been incriminating or been incriminated or involved in anything that would involve such circumstances. It's just how, these are the tactics I'm being confronted with, and this is the uncomfortable truth that certain individuals that would threaten my right to my freedom and my dwellings, after people trespassing onto my marital and family homes, are, contemplating. So there's been a lot of exploitation, as I've said. There's been unethical means of information attained also. The violations of privacy are ongoing. People unethically attaining information that is also quite serious. So, I'm quite astonished that not only have local politicians, national politicians, authorities, been turning a blind eye to this very serious issue of probably one of the most serious human rights, offences in Ireland, southwestern Ireland, easily, because this has been a whole community that's been affected by this vendetta, and that's how serious this is. But the unethical means of people attaining information has been the most very worrying part of all of this. Also, um, I haven't been consulted about the matters that I have entitlements to be consulted about, and people making decisions without my input, without my consideration, or without my involvement, is also quite dangerous, especially for any person that hasn't been qualified in the role that I am in to be deciding about. So, as a mother, as a deserted wife, and as a teacher, people that have been intruding, imposing, and not consulting with me directly, and that have been taking liberties and destroying civil liberties and making decisions about my circumstances, my family life, my marital life, my professional life, etc., etc., my personal life especially. These are all the problems that these people have caused and that are being ignored. So, the unlawful detainments, the displacement of any European Union citizen, um, in within the European Union, are all violations of the human rights. Um, People perpetrating spiritual violations and their offences, um, you know, it's a pity they don't look at their own behaviour before they start calling the shots about another person. Um, People wrecking families, marriages, young people's lives. I take great exception to all of these problems that these circumstances have caused, and for authorities and the UN agencies, especially, that have been notified about this matter by me personally, that have ignored what has happened. These are the factors of the dynamics of this entire vendetta of hate crime and human rights violations. So it's very easy for people on the outside to be looking in and casting aspersions and making false claims. But these people obviously don't know the cost of the damage that they've done. They obviously don't have any respect for humanity, and they obviously don't know the professional losses of this woman that has actually worked for what I achieved and for what I gained. without having to screw anybody over or to offend anybody either. Um, you know, when a person is achieving or aspiring or ascending, damage done is quite limited. But those that have achieved in the past 2 years and gained in the 2 years that, have involved very serious offences against me as a light worker, as a law abiding citizen, and as a deserted wife and as a mother, um, you know, are the authorities taking all these matters into consideration? Because these matters that I'm experiencing are only, with me personally. But there are, I'm sure, other people that are experiencing these violations also. And as I've said, for the people looking in and making false claims and making deluded assumptions and nonsensical and ridiculous aspersions, have they any idea of how dangerous a situation for the future as well as for the present that they are causing without respect for the Declaration of Human Rights? So, as I've said, I've experienced harassment from my marital home, my family home, and obviously these uploads aren't to everyone's liking, but this is what's happening when authorities and politicians and civil liberty agencies are prevented from assisting victims and survivors of hate crime, assault, etc., etc. So this is what's happening today. This is my second upload. A lot of injustice, discrimination, and inequality, and they're not popular words, and the truth isn't always comfortable. But for those individuals that are supposed to be professionals and that are so mature, I wonder would they have any bit of integrity for their own offences, and would they have any integrity to confront a situation professionally and maturely before they cause any more further damages? Because the violations of human rights and women's rights and civil liberties, especially for all ethnic groups as well, I might add, um, to be disrespected, and for authorities and any judicial system to facilitate or to ignore or to not, bother rectifying um, is horrendous. So, you know, this is what's happened since 2015. Um, this is pretty serious. As I keep repeating on these daily uploads, on these updates, this is what's occurring. So the European Union, of which I'm a citizen, I hope you all understand what's happening in Ireland at the moment, and especially in the southwest of Ireland, in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland. There aren't any individuals with any authority to be causing this amount of problems and disruption and intrusion in another adult's life. It's absolutely disgraceful, especially without the consultation and without the information that is required for a fully rounded and respectful process to be discussed or negotiated or, um, any way fruitful. But these are the liberties people are taking, and people are negotiating things that they have no authority to be negotiating at all, and they're intruding and imposing and making decisions that aren't ethical and that aren't mature, that aren't respectful, and that aren't professional. So, as a mother and as a deserted wife that's been harassed from my marital home, my family home, and that's been unlawfully detained only since I've been married, this is the situation that's been caused for me, and this is what's being facilitated when the authorities don't confront what is in my victim impact statement that they are aware of. So to say that this is serious is an understatement, but that's what's happening at the moment in 2020 democratic Ireland, and it's absolutely horrendous. So for those that are thinking of perpetrating any further offences, I'll be uploading daily because of the threats in society against women. and that have endangered children's rights also, just for the knowledge of any um, considerate and professional and ethical humanitarian in Europe that is following these uploads, that has been prevented and scaremongered from assisting a victim and survivor of sexual assault, revenge porn, and now hate crime. So that's what I need to share for the second upload that's relevant, because there are people taking liberties that they have no authority to be even imposing about. So for those that are imposing and causing this problem, I hope they understand how serious this is for all involved.